Okay, so we'll move on to item number 9 on your agenda, the first reading and public hearing of Ordinance 2013-17, rezoning Tuscany Woods North Parcel with planned unit development overlay zoning located at the northwest corner of Forest Road and Pine Avenue North. I read Ordinance 2013-17 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, rezoning certain real property described as a vacant parcel of property located on Pine Avenue North was a parcel ID number of 11-28-16-000-430-0100 from residential plan development RPD to residential plan development RPD with PUD overlay and providing for the effective date. That was the first reading of Ordinance 2013-17 by title only. And again, this is a Snyder hearing. Anyone that has already been sworn is still under oath for this proceeding, and staff needs to make the presentation.
Marie Daphne, Planning and Redevelopment Director. I think the slides are the same slides that I showed you for the land use, and because this is the zoning for this property, it's going to look very familiar. So the existing zoning is RPD, which permits single-family and multifamily, and the proposed is RPD with a PUD overlay, and the overlay would provide a well-planned and orderly development. This is a slide of the existing and proposed zoning. You can see it remains RPD as the underlying zoning, and the PUD overlay would promote flexibility of the design, and we have seen that occur in some previous site plans. This shows the existing wetlands and preservation that's separated from the adjacent woods of Forest Lakes single-family home subdivision, and so staff believes that this is going to provide an adequate buffer. The master development plan, it will contain 54 single-family attached townhome residential units on the 9.8 acre site. 4.46 acres is actually upland, so there is significant open space in this development. 6-unit townhome buildings are only permitted in RM15 and RPD zoning districts, and staff's opinion that the RPD zoning with the PUD overlay will provide the opportunity to efficiently use the land to facilitate a more aesthetically pleasing arrangement of buildings. As we said, the community will consist of 3-bedroom, single-family attached townhomes ranging in size from 1,500 square feet to 1,800 square feet, plus a garage and lanai. And each unit will have a 1-car garage, and additional visitor parking will be located on site. There we have the development superimposed over the area. And you can see that it is compatible with the surrounding development, specifically Cypress Lakes Recreation Center and their water park to the east, and the Westminster Apartments to the southeast. And there is a significant, wetland or open space area between the manors of Forest Lakes to the west. And we have the drainage slide again. I just wanted to point out that the city's land development code regulations regulate culverts, storm sewers, outfall ditches and canals, retention detention basins, underground systems, and they regulate drainage plan requirements to ensure for the adequate disposal of stormwater and protection of adjoining properties from damage due to stormwater runoff. And they protect the natural drainage features from degradation. So beside the other regulatory agency, staff will be reviewing the drainage side, as the Director of Public Works stated. With regard to transportation, the level of service for Pine Avenue North, it's at an acceptable level of service. It's operating at a level of service C. And as I said, there's that segment between Forest Lakes Boulevard and the Hillsborough County line. That is an F, but it is scheduled to be improved within the near future. And we confirmed that with the Pinellas County MPO. And this is, again, a picture of the renderings of the units. So staff reviewed this request against the standards for approval in section 3.15.3 of the Oldsmar Land Development Code, and based on that review, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning of a 9.8 acre site from residential plan development, RPD, to RPD with a plan unit development overlay district zoning designation. And at the July 10th, 2013 meeting, the motion to recommend that the City Council authorize the City Attorney to prepare an ordinance rezoning the 9.8 acre site from residential plan development to residential plan development with a PUD overlay district was failed, and the vote was 0-6. So I'd like to enter the staff report into the record and answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of Marie? Go ahead.
Well, I have a comment, and I would ask the mayor to reiterate what he asked about the UPD. It has strict rules to go
Yeah,
by.
I was going to, go ahead. Oh,
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, can you just kind of expand maybe on what I kind of did to what, I guess, restrictions or comfort level, if you will, for us on council that the PUD does that without that? What could happen without it and what could happen with it, I guess?
Okay, the underlying zoning, the residential plan development, there is specific regulations with regard to setback, lot area, what types of units, but we're not really concerned about that right now. So you'd have a kind of a cookie cutter type of development and, wouldn't take into account like the wetland areas or open space. You'd have to have 40% open space. You'd have to have 20% buffer around the development. And we don't really have any properties in the city now that would be
I don't
conducive.
really think that was the question. The question was what would happen if they wanted to do something different than this plan that's before the council tonight. Was that kind of more what you were asking?
Yeah, or the protection that with this being, excuse me, if it passes, that the PUD, what protection that they can't just go in and where without it, they could make changes and it would never come before council again. That's correct?
Basically, because it's going to have a PUD overlay on it, the plan is part of the zoning ordinance. And if there are any substantial changes to this plan, assuming it's adopted, or if it is adopted, then that would require a rezoning of the property. They would have to go through this process again if they change substantially the PUD, which is the plan as part of this ordinance.
The master development plan is attached.
As an example, it's 54 units. If they were to come back and say, we could put 60 units on here, that wouldn't fly. That wouldn't make it. These are two-story townhomes. If they were to come back and say, we're going to make them all three-story, that's not the plan. That wouldn't fly either. If they move a parking space, that's, kind of irrelevant. But, we're not down to the level of detail of where a fire hydrant goes. I think y'all understand that, but I'm just using these as examples that because this is a PUD overlay, the plan that goes in the ordinance is the plan they have to build.
It's added protection not only for the residents, but for the developers.
Correct.
That's the point.
county.
Yeah.
More defined in terms of what's the end result going to be.
And without that, there's a lot of things could happen and it would never come before us again.
If they weren't townhomes, if they were a single family, detached.
As long as they met the criteria of what it was without the PUD, they could do whatever they wanted and it wouldn't
Correct.
come before council.
Yes.
With the PUD, once we approve that, I just wanted to make that part of the record. Bless you. Okay, any other questions for staff at this time? No? Applicant?
Okay, for the record again, Pete Pence, certified planner with Avid Group, planner with the project. Avid Group is the engineer and planning consultant for the project. With me is Rich Kelly, the engineer and project manager, and also Chris Conkle, with the developer buyer of the property. Well, now we're here to talk about details. We talked about the big picture, we talked about compatibility. Now we're going to talk about the specific compatibility of the project. The product, as you saw in the plan that you received, and I just want to double check, you have, bear with me a second to make sure I get the right version. You did get a copy of this plan in your packet, correct? If not, I can go ahead and pass out copies of it. It's the same one that was submitted with the application, and it was on the slide that Marie put up earlier.
Yep, we have it.
Okay. And if you want, actually, Rich, want to hand these out just to make sure that they have big ones.
It's the second fold out, I think.
That is the plan for the development. What's proposed here is 54 townhomes. Those townhomes need to be built substantially the way they're shown in the plan. They're also, I didn't bring a handout, but we do have boards to show it if you want to see it. The elevations for the buildings, Maria put up a black and white version. Chris, the applicant, has color renderings of that as well that we could put up for you. We got to build those townhomes basically the way they look and are laid out in that plan. If we do anything substantially different, if we want to increase the number of units, if we want to completely change the layout in there, if we wanted to do apartments, whatever, we would have to come back in front of you, go through the same process. We'd go to the planning board, get their recommendation, come back to you for 2 public hearings, and you would have the opportunity for the residents to speak 3 more times on that process. There is a very high level of assurance of what you're going to get out of that. No, you don't get to scrutinize fire hydrant locations and stormwater design, but I mean, quite frankly, except for maybe the mayor, I'm not sure how many of you would want to pour through those stormwater calculations anyway. So those details are something that your technical staff, that's their professional competency, review for you. That's why you have them here. However, the layout of it, how it functions, how it'll look, is what's before you tonight, and that is binding upon us. We recognize that, and we want to make it clear to the audience that that is the case. Question was asked earlier, what were the concerns brought up at the planning board? That was probably one of the big ones is, well, can another Westminster Apartments come in? The answer is no, not unless we come back with a different plan at a future date, and you consider that in due course. That's not what we're doing. Traffic was brought up. Obviously, we talked about that, and I'll get into that again in a little bit. The other was the questions about the wetlands. I mentioned it in the previous application, but I'll mention it for the record on this one. There are jurisdictional wetlands on the property, about 4.4 acres. Okay. Those wetlands will stay, and we will provide an upland buffer to protect those wetlands. It'll comply with SWIFMUD and the city requirements, and so they'll have that protection. There will be a conservation easement and a impartial entity, whether it be Tampa Bay Conservancy or whoever, could be the city of Oldsmar, whoever wants to take on that responsibility, that becomes a third-party designee on that conservation easement. They're the ones that are the watchdog to make sure. And then obviously you have SWIFMUD compliance requirements, where we have to do monitoring the stormwater and the wetlands and provide those reports as required by state law. So those protections are there. We talked about earlier, and the mayor talked about this as well. By the nature of the beast, the stormwater design will address the stormwater for the site in terms of quantity and quality, discharging to the property. Any water that's currently coming onto the property, we've got to continue to accept that. We can't wall it off and stop that. We have to continue to accept that so it doesn't back up on a neighbor. Likewise, we have to discharge at the same or less intense rate to the neighbors as we did historically. Typically, you're improving the quality with that. There are certain things SWIFMUD would be looking for that Rich had talked about previously, such as they do have a significant concern about cases where there have been developments. I could think of a few up in Pasco County where they held, because of the county's requirements up there, they held back too much water. The wetlands dried out. It no longer became suitable for the animals that lived in that area. That's a problem. So SWIFMUD wants to make sure that they're adequately hydrated, but likewise make sure that we're not causing problems for the human neighbors downstream either. So those are all part of the drainage analysis. Lisa will review that for the city. SWIFMUD will be reviewing that. They both will have to approve and sign off on
I have a
that.
question for you, Mayor.
Hold on, can we just let him finish with this and then we'll ask him?
The transportation improvements, I threw out the numbers before, just to reiterate, it's total trip calculation. It's in the detail, and for the record, I'd like to enter my analysis as part of the record. It was in your staff report. It's a total of 316 trips per day. That's over a 24-hour period. Obviously, some people work days, some work nights, some work in between, some are stay-at-home parents. So they're doing the they're doing the school carpool thing. And so it's spread out over the course of the day. During the peak hour, that would be 28 trips. That's, again, it's equivalent of about car every 2 minutes. Those figures calculate the traffic for both the residents living in those units coming and going, as well as the UPS truck and other vehicle friends and stuff coming over to visit. Those numbers are based on IT standards. The county has their standards that they've done through their transportation impact fee ordinance. They're basically the same. There's a little bit of a difference in the number, but they're essentially they're the same. I was remiss in pointing out in the previous thing, while it is a diminished amount of traffic and we would not be doing off-site improvements, we do something about it. This project would pay transportation impact fees. That's currently $1,420 per unit. What that amounts to is $76,680 for the 54 units. When you add in the next one, you're going to hear it'll be just under $114,000. So it is a pretty significant amount of money that gets split between the city and the county for them to use for transportation capacity improvements. So probably I failed to mention that there is a payment that does go towards making improvements, but there won't be a specific project built by the applicant as part of it. But there will be monies available to the county and the city to use towards projects that they're doing, and that's the point of that. And that impact fee is based on the DOT construction costs and a formula that the county publishes, which I can tell you is much higher than what it actually costs to build a road. So, because it's based on DOT acquisition, design, and construction costs. So they should be able to build the improvements actually for less money than that as far as a per trip amount. The questions came up about the elevation of the buildings. Again, the facade was in there. They are 2-story units. You do have a plan, elevation rendering to show you what those look like. We will have on-site lift station and utility improvements to connect to the city system. There will not be well or septic for this project. They will be connecting to the city services. The city has assured us that there is capacity in the lines and in the plants to handle that. Again, parks are available in the area. We also will pay into the city's park fund, and those could be used as the city sees fit in whichever facilities you would like to do expansion in. The way the impact fees obviously work is developments pay their share for those new residents that come to the city. The city's bus, the board had quite a bit of discussion in the last one about traffic in the area, and one of the blessings of this area is the amount being an employment center for Pinellas County. You're in a very envious position with the rest of the county where you are a central hub for that. You have high-paying jobs, a lot of jobs concentrated in the area. With that comes traffic, unfortunately. People have to drive in because you don't have enough housing in the area for you to live down the street and go to work. A lot of people will obviously want to do that. This provides an opportunity for people to live and work closer to home. We talked about wetlands. We talked about not adversely affecting the drainage pattern. Excuse me a second, throat's getting dry. These will be private gated roads, which means that the homeowners association will own them and they'll maintain them. These are fee simple lots. They are attached units, so you will have neighbors sharing a wall, but they are title ownership to the property. They're a single family house, so there is ownership. They're not rental units. They're not apartments, and so with that obviously comes a higher level of pride normally than you would have in a rental situation. So that's a plus to having that. These are not small units. They're 1,500, 1,800 square foot. They're pretty good size. They're probably a lot bigger than a lot of the existing housing stock in the city, except for the ones that were built maybe in some of the more recent ones, especially in the boom years. They all have a garage and a lanai. They're 3-bedroom units. We do have, one of the questions the planning board had, and we did address that with them, is concern about parking. In addition to meeting the code requirements, having parking in the garage and in the driveway, we also have 10 guest parking spaces on our plan so that we could provide for that, so that there would be actual places to park besides parking on street. In addition, this location is kind of unique because it's over by the park. There's actually city on-street parking with meters as well, so there's even that opportunity available as well. I think I've pretty much covered everything. Obviously, in my analysis, we provided for discussion about all the impacts and how we meet all the city's criteria. We feel it's going to be a great project, and we're looking forward to doing the project. You're already familiar with the developer. He's already doing projects in the city, and we look forward to doing this one too.
Thank you. Questions?
you have to forgive some of the people and me for when you bring up Swift Mud, because I had long discussions with Swift Mud, and they didn't impress me at all, especially in the woods. I think they really screwed up over there. So I hope Swift Mud does a better job now than they did in the past. Could you show, correct me if I'm wrong, did you say that underneath the power lines there was going to be another holding pond?
No, no,
You didn't say that.
no, the power lines are a separate property, they're owned by Duke
You
Energy.
say there was going to be another one up there somewhere?
I didn't say anything about that.
Well, why didn't you say that?
Not our property, we can't build it there.
Because I don't have a question.
That might be an interesting city or county project, though.
Janice, Vice Mayor?
No, I listened to him, I understood everything he said.
Linda?
I had two questions. The portion where there's the sixplex that affects the existing wetland, why not a fourplex there so that you don't affect the existing wetland? I mean, I know it's always like a question of profitability and money, but
In essence, that's what it boils down to.
Units.
It's a very low-grade wetland. It's only 0.1, I think it's like 0.11 or 0.12 acres. So it's real small. It's not well hydrated. It is isolated. The biologist, who's Cardinal Environmental, did meet with Swift Mud and their biologist and walked the site. In fact, our engineer, Rich, was there as well. And they determined that it was not of any environmental significance, and we did not require any mitigation other than obviously addressing the stormwater storage capacity of it, which is going to be better suited by a properly designed pond, which is basically replacing it except for that one corner that clips into it.
okay.
And so that's part of the cascading system of the two interconnected ponds, which will then discharge out through a controlled point on the property.
Another question that someone had brought up earlier, I don't know if you addressed it yet, is what's the selling prices on the units, or what's the
I'll
planned
have
selling
Chris come
price?
up and address that one.
May I make a comment?
Well, look, can we let him answer her question?
Sure.
Good evening, Council. Chris Conkle, 2300 Curlew Road. I am the owner-developer. Your question and answer to the question is the townhouses will start at 200,000 and will peak at roughly 240,000. And a national builder is scheduled to build on the property.
Okay, thank you.
And then I have a rendering also for the south parcel, which you can look at here later on.
Any questions? Comment?
My comment is, why a one-car garage? I mean, I understand you need the room, but when you're asking $240,000, I would, if it were me that were buying, I'd want a two-car garage.
So what you're saying is you're not buying up there, is that what you're saying?
I'm not buying up there, yes, but,
You parked your car outside anyway.
yeah, because I have a one-car garage.
I don't know if I have a true answer for that, other than that, obviously, the developers, the builder that's going to build it has done a lot of marketing and determined that that's what the need is for the area.
I'm a
I personally have
realtor,
a two-car
he's a
garage myself.
realtor, and, I mean, our people are gonna want two-car garages.
You know, and I've said this comment before, and I, no offense, but if he thinks it works, I really don't.
Yeah.
I really don't care if it works. I have a 3-car garage and I don't have any cars in them.
You don't have any.
Actually, I have my friend's car in it.
I don't have a garage at all, so.
Just to add to your point, keep in mind, this is the last available piece of land, along with the city-owned piece, that's available in the north part of the city. So the studies that I have done, along with the national developer, or builder, should I say, is looking for more the single and the married couple that has no children, that typically is their bigger basis point of the number of units that are sold out of the total development. So they are counting on more of the usable space of the units, because they only build 54 units on the parcel. They have to make that up somewhere. So they do that in terms of keeping the unit just two-story. So if it was 3, they could widen the unit and obviously create a two-car garage. But in this case, they like the elevation, keeping it just 2 stories, which is more compatible on the way they want to see this project being developed. And more so fits more aesthetically on the south parcel, and being able to protect that with landscape and a buffer wall. So the studies they've done show that the single-car garage is more plausible, and the price point starting at $200,000. The upgrades are really indicative of what the buyer actually wants to upgrade the unit to kick that point up to a $240 selling price. So
again, the history and the research that's been done by the builder itself shows that they would prefer the single-car garage.
Okay.
He's on a TRC, he knows about.
Any other questions? I have a couple of questions. You answered my price point one. And I do want to say thanks for addressing the transportation impact issue. I have been involved in that, but it's one of those things that I kind of already knew. And again, back to Jerry with, his deer in the front yard and me and everybody north of Tampa Road and everybody in all of North Pinellas County, all these impact fees are what, widened Tampa Road, made the improvements to Racetrack Road. And, we don't really know exactly where that money is going to go, but it's going to go to help the overall problem that we're all feeling. Question I have is accessibility, and can you address why or why not a second entrance onto Pine?
Right.
We actually could do that. Chris and I were actually talking about that before the meeting, that is a possibility that we could do that. If
I was going to ask that too.
I don't think Chris, I don't think you have a concern about making that a condition of the approval, right? Providing a second access at the northern end.
Well, and being somebody that lives in Bay Arbor, 240 homes in one access point, especially from a life safety issue also.
As a condition of approval, I'll agree to doing that. I have no problem. I looked at the flow pattern here, and I would agree to have that extra access point coming off Pine Street.
Would it be off of that north, I'm not locking into it, but is that what you're talking about, the north spur, that north little spur on Pine? Okay.
Portion, absolutely, correct.
And the other part of that is that people are going to be, with the spray park and the rec center, people are going to be wanting to get over there anyway. I assume it'll be gated or whatever you'll do over there to secure it, but.
Yeah, the original consideration for having one was because it's a gated community, obviously one gate's easier
Well, the
to
entrance
do
off
from that perspective, but from like I said, from a public safety and convenience perspective, it makes sense to have that
An
second
entrance off
driveway.
in Pine makes more sense.
Yeah.
Well, two entrances. That's the question I had earlier. I thought this was a site plan issue and it
That was
didn't
land
come
use.
into it.
That was
Oh,
land use.
So
This
that, okay. I'm glad you asked that question.
I think my
then.
bigger concern, though, is once they get to Forest Lakes. I mean, that's the.
Yeah,
Well, and that's,
It's
and
just,
then it'll have to be improved.
but again, it's one of the, well, I will do the
Right.
discussion, but floodplain, I know, you don't know exactly, but are there floodplain issues with this property? Because I know the drainage has been a concern of the residents and even council members as well, and I know you've got to address it, I know that, but are there floodplain issues associated with this?
FEMA says it's an X zone, which means it's less than it's outside the 500-year flood zone. So it's not, from FEMA's perspective, it's not drainage. From Swiftmud's perspective, is a different animal. You do have to do basin analysis, as you're well aware, with drainage design, and so sometimes there could be localized drainage issues, which we already know is an issue in this area, that have to be addressed, that are above and beyond what FEMA requires. But as far as a FEMA flood insurance perspective, no, there's not an issue there, and then we'll comply with the Swiftmud and city criteria for the drainage design for it.
And I know the answer to this, and you've kind of addressed it, but just for clarification, any water that, let's just say for discussion purposes, from the north, any water that was coming from the north that drained through this property, likewise, any water that came from the western wetlands areas, I don't know that they do, but if they drain through your property, you would either have to accommodate it through your stormwater or bypass it, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, there's two alternatives. One, which is the more common one, is to bypass it so that it doesn't commingle with, as you will, dirty water from parking lots and roads. And you typically would bypass that to avoid that problem of the commingling with polluted water.
Right.
The other option is to actually bring it into the ponds, and then you've got to treat that plus your site water.
Which happens from time to time if it's a small
You
amount.
could do it either way or a combination of the two.
Transportation, I don't have any other questions. Anybody other have any questions of the applicant and or staff?
No.
nope.
No? This is a public hearing. Thank you. At this point, any proponents? People in favor of change? Any opponents? Those against? Would like to address the council?
Question. Tyson Munson, 510 Pinewood. I guess I'm a 50-50 because I am not opposed to it. I'm here for some growth. But looking at this site plan, a couple of things. You got Suncatch, some of the others. There is no proposed swimming pool here. I don't see a swimming pool set up.
either.
No. Okay, because the other subdivision, actually the adjacent subdivision that has, also has a swimming pool, you're gonna have as well. I mean, talking about mirroring the subdivisions and making things equivalent, you've got Suncatch that has a very similar one-car garage, okay? But as far as the entrance onto, you're creating a problem right there. I'm not opposed to entrance on Pine, but if you bring it in Forest, you need to experience these areas yourself, because I'm sitting here comically laughing and looking at the impact, and what these traffic studies are garbage. Throw them out, because none of y'all have been there for Nielsen. That you guys, that everybody in the board has approved, but was part of bringing them in. I'm game with that. I'm great, but you're not feeling the impact from that. You have nobody's even mentioned Nielsen. That's 90% of our impact right there. So now turning left onto Forest Drive at 3 o'clock on. You put more homes on there, you're gonna back up and put a tail onto Tampa Road, or on, excuse me, Forest Lakes Boulevard, which now we have another problem, county property. We have the problem because it gets waist high out there on Forest Lakes Boulevard because the county cuts it once a year or whatever. And then the city takes care of ours. So we've got an issue there. So just a FYI, if we're expanding in their impact fees, which is great, I'm for it, it's going to be a while because I've been dealing with the county trying to get it cut. So if the board would consider, the council, excuse me, you know, the plans need to be really looked at some of that traffic coming in on Forest.
That would be site plan,
I
right?
tell you what,
I don't know this is the overall approval of this plan. I don't know if that's what but I'm looking at this plan and telling you, look, I'm the guy that turns the dirt. You can tell me engineering all day long and how this water moves this way. Come walk with me. I'll show you.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the end of the day, and look, I'm here for improvement. But some of these site plans, we're in the swamp. Right now, that lot is holding 7 to 8 inches of water below grade right now. You want to bet? Yeah. Let's go walk. I live there. I've been there 5 years. I would have never bought my home there. So again, some of the conditions and things that you need to think about. I really think a pool needs to be added if you're going to match things that go in here. And all that runoff in that small little pond. Hey, Swift Mud, if you're telling me that they're... Anyway, I don't agree that the runoff plan, because when you put pavement down and rooftops and you got a 1/4 acre pond, unless you're bringing in to build the grade up, and that was another question, whether they're bringing in dirt to raise it above 2 feet, 10 feet, 5 feet above grade, and I'm sure there's a requirement. That's all.
Thank you. And just, you know, for your comfort, staff is here and they are hearing the concerns that you have, as well as council, and they have not yet gone for their Swift Mud permit. Again, this is, you know, preliminarily what they've thought is going to be required, but as I've stated and the applicant has stated, you know, stormwater is either it's cup for cup and your comment is that there's water out there now. Well, that's existing storage that they have to account for in their design. They can't, you know, they can't discredit that. So, well, they haven't done any calculations yet, so because they haven't gone in, but. Sure, I understand. And so, you know, the staff is hearing your concerns. The applicant did address, you know, at least some additional traffic onto Pine, which, you know, anytime you have 2 exits, you know, you're going to go with the one with the least resistance. But any other opponents that would like to address? Certainly.
Yes, hello, I'm Ellen McAvoy from 563 Lakewood Drive. I'd just like to say I'm not against development, I'm against overdevelopment. And the impact of 56 homes is quite different than the impact of 30 homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Craig Collins, 415 Lakewood Drive. She pretty much said what I wanted to say, mostly in response to what Mr. Beaverland said. Which I appreciate what he said. I think all of us do understand that something will be built there. We didn't plan to move here with the intention of pulling in the welcome mat behind us. But I think what the big gripe is that we're being asked to, you all are being asked to approve additional density when we already have existing problems, and that being the drainage and the traffic. So we know what it's zoned for. We know something can be built there, but why do we want to allow greater density than what's presently approved for? Thank you.
Any other opponents?
Chris Cusler, 10606 Robinwood Drive in the Woods. I agree with you, Jerry. This is a great place. I am not opposed to this because I do trust that city staff will make sure if it gets built that it's up to the proper standards and the wetlands are taken care of and the stormwater's done and all that stuff. I just have two questions. Traffic is an issue up here. What, between this and we know we're about to hear another piece of property to the south, what would trigger a formal traffic study? Because looking at the numbers and reading the memos and stuff, it doesn't look to me like a formal traffic study was done with counts and all the other things. Okay. I'm not a traffic guy, so I don't know what triggers a formal traffic study.
Well, the problem with the formal traffic study, and I agree, is that when I was chairman of the Pinellas Planning Council and when I was on it also, these traffic studies are bastardized on both sides. You can hire a person, I want a traffic study, and they're going to tell you exactly what you want to have. On the opposite side, they do the same thing. You can't trust either side with these traffic studies. The traffic studies are horrible.
And I was going to save this to discussion, but the real problem is, and I statistically don't know the answer to my point, which is the majority, I would venture to say, the majority of the problems that we all experience on a day-to-day traveling is whether it's me coming out of Bay Arbor or it's, people coming out of Forest Lakes, or it's going down Forest Lakes on the line bar. I would venture to say that probably 80% of the people that are clogging up our roads don't live here, don't work here. Well, they may work here, but they're commuting to Water Chase, they're commuting to West Chase, they're commuting, into town. I mean,
Exactly.
So, and that's good and bad. It's what's built Oldsmar to what it is, but we are a major thoroughfare from east to west. We're the only land connection to Hillsborough County, and it, unfortunately or fortunately, it goes right through the city of Oldsmar. So the problems that we're all experiencing, if as Jerry said, if the previous mayor had had their way and walled this whole community in, 50 more cars would not be an impact because you wouldn't have 7,000 that are passing through. So that's the problem we really got to address, and hopefully the 108,000, whatever the number is going to go to. It's a problem countywide that everybody's experiencing. So, but I don't know the answer. This does not trigger a traffic study per se.
I don't think it does. I mean, they have furnished what are the estimated trips from this project, and the PM peak hour, which is usually, in terms of traffic evaluations, the worst out of the 24 hours. This project is estimated to generate 28 trips during the peak PM hour. So that would be one trip about every 2 minutes. I don't think that it's going to have a significant impact on Pine Avenue or Forest Road. We already know that the real bottleneck is Forest Lakes Boulevard east of Pine. And certainly, assuming there are people living here someday, some of them are going to want to go in that direction and use that. That'll be up to Pinellas County. I mean, it was designed to eventually widen it to 4 lanes. Just one other point, and that is that the city council cannot require a developer to mitigate existing traffic. I mean, some of the comments that have been made this evening related to Nielsen, or these are the existing conditions, or whatever. We cannot require this developer to do anything to mitigate existing traffic.
No, I understand that. One simple other question. I see this is Tuscany South. Tuscany North is not up in the same area, is it? Planned to be there?
Tuscany North, Tuscany South is...
Is that the triangle piece?
Triangle.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents that would like to address the council?
Joe Coble, 573 Lakewood Drive. My question is, when they built Phase 2 where I live in the woods, it was the toilet bowl like it is now, where they're thinking about putting this plot in. They came in with 15 foot of dirt all through the subdivision in phase 2. I'm 15 feet above sea level. So my question is, from Forest Road and Pine, are you bringing in dirt if you knock down all the trees, or how much are you going to be bringing in? And which way is the water flow going? Is it going west towards Brooker Creek, or are you going to be tapping into the existing sewer systems? Because there's a culvert, I believe, on Jacaranda and Forest that's pretty much filled during heavy rain. So just a question I have for you.
Okay, if you can note that, I'll have you come back up and address that. We'll
Thanks.
get an answer for you, thank you.
Good evening, John Gardner, 413 Pinewood. I'm not opposed to change either, but the reality, and I think the majority of the people are here, is because of the changes that this developer is requesting in order to create this development, whether it's north or south. And the fact of the matter is, the land use was the land use. It was for 5, it wasn't for 10. And we're asking, I think, those that are here, is to leave it alone. We're asking that more rooftops, but at the numbers that the properties that this land was set for, not to say we want to add, because we're just going to add to the traffic. We're going to add to the congestion. We're going to add to the problems. And all we're saying, I think, is just stay with what we have. We don't need to amend anything. We don't need to change those rules that we already have. It's like, I was in law enforcement for 34 years. We don't change the laws to accommodate the criminal. And I'm not saying a criminal, but we don't do that. And the rules are the rules, and all we're saying is, let's leave it the way it is. Let's have 5 rooftops, not 10.
Okay. And,
Well, then there won't be any.
and to address your comment, that was actually the land use change that we talked about. This is now a zoning change.
And that was the first reading.
Understood. And your point's well taken. And this is the only thing I can say, and I don't know the answer to this, but I would venture to say, and Bruce and or probably Jerry can probably address that, I would venture to say that everybody north of Tampa Road that's in a newer development, they probably had to have, in Bay Arbor, I would assume had to have some kind of a change, again, you're using the term rules, but to accommodate where everybody lives north of Tampa Road, probably had to have some changes. Am I correct in that, in general?
Well, Bay Arbor definitely was. It was previously, the land use was industrial on Bay Arbor.
Yeah, where I live is industrial. So over time, we are not the 1970 Oldsmar anymore, and a lot of these land uses and zonings are back when we were that.
But realistically, we wouldn't be here tonight if those changes, requests weren't being made. I mean, the land use was for 5 and not for 10, and all we're saying, I think, the majority of, we could live with 5.
And I understand, and my point is, though, I don't think any of us that are north of Tampa Road would be here if we left what was in place there. My subdivision wouldn't be there, your subdivision wouldn't, I don't know this for a fact, I'm speaking
Ours
general.
would be.
And some of the other newer ones that are in there, and some of the development potentially that's gone in. I mean, I don't know that, and again, I don't know the answer to this, but I would venture to say very rarely do you have a project that goes in that isn't requesting something, some type of a tweak, or which we went through with Wellington Estates to change the PUD part so that.
But I think those that are here are on the opposition side versus the pro side, and I think that it's the city of Oldsmar residents that are saying something to the city council to say, don't make these changes. We're asking you not to make these changes, to support us as a community of the city of Oldsmar. And just do yourself a favor, don't compare it, and I know the city's already done it, to Westminster. Big mistake. We know there's a number of us that don't like the issues as a result of building Westminster and the problems we still have today. But all I'm saying is my position is against it, and the fact is I don't think we need to make the changes or approve those changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Alex, 513 Lakewood. I just sort of want to echo that gentleman's sentiment, specifically as it pertains to that south piece, which is a very small corner, a very small piece of land on the corner.
We're not talking about the small, that's going to come up next.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're not there yet?
I'm ready for you. I'm with you. Don't worry.
Salt Lakes, okay,
we're there.
I'll be back.
Thanks, Arnold.
I'm Jane Bukowski, 703 Jacaranda Drive. I'm in the Manors back there. So I went through the whole Westminster thing. And I really appreciate, Gabby, what you said about the planning committee. You know, you have some great people on that planning board, and you didn't follow what they recommended. I just don't get that. I really don't get that. So what makes me think that the staff is going to follow, the drainage and everything's going to be cool with Swift mud? I have serious doubts. And I really don't understand why you don't take the recommendation of your planning board. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Ruth Lovett, 412 Lakewood Drive in the Woods, Forest Lakes. Again, I want to reiterate some of the same things that I said previously, as well as the other speakers on this particular issue. I want to remind the council members there's 151 homes in the woods, and I personally spoke to a third of those homeowners. Now, they couldn't all be here tonight. In fact, a lot of them couldn't be here tonight with childcare and those kinds of issues. So I really feel, as their board member, I want to speak for them and represent them. So it isn't just me speaking here, it's at least a third of the homeowners in that subdivision. And I do think it boils down to more of a density kinds of issues. I don't think any of them really are against progress, but going from 30 homes to 54, I've heard a couple different figures, 52, 54, I think it's 54 townhouses, really would exacerbate some of the existing problems. We've already mentioned the compounding issue to the traffic. There's concern about potential property value going down with townhouses coming in and not exactly like other subdivisions in that regard. The drainage issues causing existing problems within the woods, and you can say that the plans will deal with them, but the reality is we're dealing with those issues now, and 54 homes versus 30 homes is just going to compound the existing problem with the drainage. Again, the loss of the wetlands. I too have deer in my yard, and so do they, raccoons, the birds, and so forth. Why wouldn't we want to preserve some of that? Why do we want to dispel that even more in Oldsmar? It's one of the things that brings people here. The traffic congestion we mentioned, and the recent vandalism that a lot of our neighbors have experienced, and some of the crime that has occurred since the addition of the Westminster apartments, and the concern that just more people will bring more of those issues around. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I'll ask the applicant to address that
I'd like
again.
to say something. Westminster are rental apartments. These people are buyers of 200 to 240,000. I don't think they're going to be coming into your neighborhood and vandalizing anything. I mean, Westminster, I was on the planning board for 7 years. And when Westminster came up, I was against it too. But it doesn't mean because these people are going to be in townhouses that they're bad people, and I mean, they're not gonna, I don't think they're gonna go in your neighborhoods and vandalize anything. I mean, because they live there, they're buying, they're not renting.
Good point. Thank you. Anybody else like to address the council?
Hi, I'm David McGee, and I live at 541 Lakewood Drive in the Woods of Forest Lakes. First, I'd like to say that I'm all for progress. You've spoken a couple of times about progress. I worked a number of years in the fire service, not in this locality, and I know that that those individuals pay for my salary, and so I'm not against that. However, at this point, I'm very cautious about developers. I'm very cautious about the city, and I'm very cautious about governmental permits, swift mud. When I bought my house 13 years ago, which at this point is my biggest asset, I trusted the city in that the drainage and all the components of that neighborhood were going to be addressed, and I wasn't going to have a problem. I live one of the few houses that actually has a drainage ditch behind my house that goes out into the woods, and it's supposed to drain off the street. In Tyson's case here, I feel very sad for some of my neighbors because the water backs up into his garage just with a little bit of rain. Fortunately, I'm high enough that it does not back into my house. If I was a little bit lower, it would. And so I'm concerned about the drainage and maybe the impact this may have on it. And what this young lady said a couple of minutes ago about you entrust your planning commission to give you recommendations. They, at this point, did not approve this, but all of a sudden the council now has approved it. I'm a little bit leery about that. We've just celebrated a young lady today for being one of your outstanding employees, and the city has a number of outstanding employees, but you didn't listen to them. And I think that's something you have to take in consideration. I'm a little leery of my council members when I have a staff that we have within the city that makes a recommendation, but yet we don't follow that recommendation. I mean, they best know it better than the council would.
Correct you on that. The planning board is not staff.
Okay, well, okay, I'm sorry. Well,
I just want to separate the two because the planning board is a planning board and the staff makes their recommendation.
Based on that. Okay.
So there's a step in between. I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you for that clarification. Absolutely. So I hold the council members to high standards that they will look out for from my property and my city, which you do. But taking the recommendations of what the planning commission or the planning staff gives to you and consider that. Again, I'm not opposing progress, but I think we need to take a hard look. As John has spoken a few minutes ago, that there are changes already from what they initially proposed, going from 5 to 10, and I think we need to hold them to that. So that's all that I had on that matter. Thank you.
When I was on the planning board for 7 years, I don't recall the council ever listening to the planning board.
And maybe not, but that's why you have them.
To tell you the truth, because they don't know all the aspects of the city. Right. That's why.
I was going to, and I can't speak for the other council members. Obviously, we're not allowed to talk about it amongst ourselves, but we all are, kind of required to do our own due diligence to find out the answers to that. And I know me, and I'm pretty sure I speak for everybody up here. We all had the same concern. Why was it 0 to 6? And I think that we were given somewhat of an answer as to that. Is that they brought all of these issues together at one point, and discussed them all at one point, and it was confusing as to, and we're not allowed to be there. And as Vice Mayor Miller just said, the planning board gets the information that's presented to them by the applicant and by staff, I guess, and things like that. But they don't have, as we sit up here on council and have to also address, a lot of people don't know the overall picture of everything. And I wasn't there and I can't speak. Janice has said that she's been on the planning board and they do the best that they can with the information that they have, which is why we have these public hearings and we have staff come in and we have, the professionals come in. And it does happen. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but we do rely on our staff very heavily to look at that and look at the kind of the bigger picture of what's going on. And that's why we're here to do this and ask questions, to answer the questions that we know you have. Why was it 0 to 6 and why is staff going against them? So
I guarantee you it was because they were overloaded.
Well, that's not the only thing. Look, we try to look at the big picture, the whole city. The planning board doesn't. They have little specific, not little, but they have specific things that's brought before them.
Yes.
And they don't even meet every month because there's not that much. So we, not that, let me tell you something. You got 5 people up here that are elected that are imperfect. And we know we're imperfect. We know that. But I've always tried to look out for the whole city. What's best for the whole city.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We're getting a little bit off, but I wanted to just kind of address that.
And I think we appreciate what you've done. You've been to my house numerous times over the last 13 years, and even walked back in the woods to see some of the drainage problems and scratched her head. And I think to your comment, Mr. Mayor, was, years ago, we probably didn't have in place what we have now, and I'm trusting that we have improved those services, and those people who are moving in and the building that we're doing is being held up to some standard. 13 years ago, I thought we also had a standard, and I guess maybe in this case, I maybe felt I was sold a wrong bill of goods. And I just want to make sure with this new construction coming on that we're holding those folks to the highest standards also.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other?
Brandy Fetter, 569 Lakewood Drive, Oldsmar. Live in the woods of Forest Lakes. I was at the planning meeting, and I'll tell you the reason that they voted, the way they did is because of all the issues that are mentioned in here tonight. Drainage, they all knew there was a drainage problem. That's probably why they voted against it. Now, they had to follow the process, I understand, which in order to get it before you, it had to be voted as so they passed that, but they didn't vote on it. But I just wanted to clarify that for you. I was there, so was a number of folks in here too. They knew the planning board. The reason they did not pass it is because they knew the problems. Traffic was mentioned, and also the drainage issue, which, I'm still not clear on what the heck is with the drainage thing. I see culverts going underneath Forest Road, and I know damn well that if the water goes up on that side, it's coming over our way. So unless they're going to plug those up, I'll walk you over there and show them to you, Jerry.
You and I have already done that.
Thank you.
Looked at that culvert.
Thank you.
I have. Remember, I told you that there was one further east.
Hold on. We don't want
need a debate.
Yeah, we don't want to debate with the, with the speakers. Anybody else like to address the council? Nobody? I would like to ask, staff, do you have anything? I'd like to ask the applicant to come and add whatever he would else like to add, and also address a couple of the issues that were brought up.
Back again, for the record, Pete Pensa, Avid Engineering, Certified Planner. I think the key thing is, remember, this is a rezoning action. You've heard testimony, you've read written testimony report from your staff. You have a professional, competent staff. They are licensed, certified professionals. You have a PE, you have a professional engineer on your staff. Lisa's here tonight. She spoke to you earlier. You have Marie as a certified planner. I believe you have other certified planners in your staff as well. Obviously, we're licensed and certified professionals on our side. SwiftMod will be there as yet another set of eyes as professionals that are licensed, certified to do that. All of our submittals are open record. Anybody's able to look at them, question them, verify them. You've heard before you tonight substantial competent evidence from professionals, from both your own staff plus the applicants, as to why this is consistent with the city's criteria. Is everything finished and we can pull our construction permits tomorrow? No, it's not. There is additional analysis that has to be done. There's no question about that. On the other hand, you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars doing that design when you don't have the assurance that you can do what you're going to do there. No, there's a process to it, and that's why we're here tonight. That's why there's 3 agenda items, because there's a process to that. We take those next steps, and if things don't work out during the design, then guess what? Things get scaled back. That's what inevitably happens. Or we make modifications. If they're substantial, they come back in front of you because we deviated from what you approve. If we're able to accommodate it within what the framework of what's approved by this board, then we're able to move forward with that, and it's done by the review of several agencies. Let's see, going to the comments, bear with me a second. There was discussion about crime in some surrounding projects and vandalism, pass-through traffic, I guess you will, pedestrian traffic primarily, and other projects. That's obviously not this project. Again, this is a single-family ownership project. It is a gated community. Chris got up and talked about earlier, and the Vice Mayor asked the question, why single-car garages? I think that says a lot, actually, because who is the market? It's the single professional. It's probably the single professional woman. It's the young, first-time, maybe not first-time home buyer, but a young couple maybe that's buying a house that doesn't have kids, that doesn't need or want a big yard. It could be retirees who don't want to deal with the maintenance of a large lot and everything that comes with having a single-family detached lot. There are some advantages to having a community of this type where you have a homeowner association that does the landscaping and beautification maintenance for you, that maintains the roads within the project. There's a lot of benefits to that single people, retired people, young busy people would want to do. I don't think that's the type of person that's going to go in and vandalize other people's properties.
But I also don't think that retired people are going to be wanting to walk up and down stairs. So
that may be.
That shoots that one down.
Young and mobile retirees. Property values, I mean, Chris Conkle talked about the values of this. I don't believe, and I think if you asked an appraiser, they would tell you that this would not negatively affect values in the area. New home construction is a positive thing for the area, provides variety, provides alternatives. It's not a detractor. There is, again, this compatible uses, it goes back a little bit more to the land use side of it, but there are substantial compatibility buffers. There's a large wetland system that buffers it from the adjacent single family, so that's not even an issue in this case. I'll let Rich address the fill for the site and discharge in more detail. Basically, the site's about 13 and a half feet existing. We are planning to raise it at roughly about 3 feet. I'll let him explain it in more detail. But as many of you are probably aware from seeing other projects that you've reviewed in the past, typically you will fill to provide for that positive drainage outfall into the ponds in the site. And again, as we talked about earlier, there are ways to bypass and hold water that comes into the site for those areas that are lower, so that's not an issue. While we were sitting here, I did look up, I don't have the ITE standards with me, but I did look at the Pinellas County Transportation Impact Fee Ordinance and their trip generation rates just to get an idea. One of the comments, I believe her name was Ellen McAvoy, brought up was the difference between single family and having townhomes here. Single family homes, according to the county transportation standards, generate 9.6 trips per day for a single family unit, whereas a townhome would be 6.6 units. It's about 2/3. The IT, I don't have the exact number for single family, but I think it's 10.1 if my memory serves me right. It's definitely somewhere around 10. So you're real close, 9.6, 10 is very similar. On the flip side, I know that IT for townhomes is 5.8, so it's a little bit lower than what the county says. But either way, you're looking at the same order of magnitude. A townhome generates roughly about 2/3 of the traffic of a single family house. So there is lesser impact. And it goes back to what we just talked about a couple minutes ago, with there being the type of unit that it is, it tends to be single, people without children, they generally have less trips.
Are these going to be 2 or 3 bedroom?
3 bedroom.
3 bedroom?
Yes.
Why would you need 3 bedrooms if you don't have children?
Hobby room. Hobby
Home
room,
office.
guest room, home office.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Guest room.
Yeah.
Potential for future children one day.
That's what I mean.
People plan for that.
Extra
Anything
closet
else?
space. A question was brought up about a pool. This project's not big enough for that. I mean, I don't have a magic number to it, but I mean, my experience, I've done hundreds of projects around the state of Florida. My guess would probably be somewhere around 100, probably closer to 150 units is that break point for when you can afford to put a pool in a community. I'm not familiar with which projects he was talking about off the top of my head, but I'm sure if you looked at those are probably in the 100 or maybe even hundreds of units that are in those projects that have pools. It's just not something that's an option. What is an option is to use the city facilities, and the project's going to be paying into the city's park funds in order to provide both parkland and park facility improvements for that. Another comment was made about the county or the lack of county maintenance of the roads. Just want to clarify that the transportation impact fees are specifically for capacity improvements. They are not for maintenance. So that's not used to pay for the county's maintenance budget to have a guy go out with a mower and mow it or to plant flowers in the median. It's used for capacity
We
improvements.
didn't get into that because we don't control that anyway.
I just want to be reassured that that money's not going to go into to the county mowing down at Pinellas
controlled
Park
by
or something.
somebody
It would be
else,
used for building more roads, building more lanes, building turn lane improvements, signal improvements, those type of things that actually add the ability to hold more cars on the road.
We don't control that money,
Yeah.
the county, so, I mean, whatever that money goes.
Hold on, I can't have you talking from the crowd,
All
sorry.
right, and with that, I'll have Rich address the drainage again.
There was just a couple of questions I heard I wanted to address. One was about the drainage pattern, the existing drainage pattern. Everything from this site in the existing condition crosses Forest Road in those two culverts and ends up in the wetland on the south side of Forest Road, which is the main outfall for the woods of Forest Lakes. That all goes to the west and heads across near, I guess it was called.
It does come to.
It all goes to the same wetland.
I can't have discussion from the crowd, sorry.
It all goes to that wetland. But like I said earlier, we will not be increasing the water. In fact, we'll be decreasing it in the larger storms, just so we can keep it equal in the smaller everyday storms. Inherently, that lessens the amount of water that runs off in the higher storms. And to answer Tyson's question, we'll be raising the site close to 3 feet. There basically won't be any cut at all. The site is being raised and the pond bottom is going to basically be at existing grade. And that's to provide soil storage, the difference between the groundwater level and the bottom of the pond. We can take advantage of that for the percolation. So the ponds will dry out before the next rainfall. Those are the only two issues that I thought I needed to clear up.
Thank you. Anything else? Any questions, additional questions of staff and/or the applicant? I do have one question you just made. Are these going to be dry ponds or wet ponds? Dry. Dry ponds, okay. I just picked that up at the end. Any other questions? Jerry, how about you?
Yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, I haven't yet. I'm getting ready to. With no further questions of staff or applicants, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. I need a motion, some type of a motion. There was discussion about we can add a condition. We can add a condition of a second driveway on Pine. That was discussed by the applicant, so that could be added to the motion.
Maybe we should wait for Jerry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually do have one comment. I appreciate all of the information about the
We're not
impact.
we're going to do a motion in a second, and we'll discuss. But we're done.
Oh, no, it was just for something that he pointed out on the trips. So
Okay.
just wait while we were waiting for Jerry, but it's
Okay.
okay. I don't have to say it.
We're just looking for a motion to either approve or a motion with a condition. And the condition that was mentioned via a question was that they could accommodate a drive onto Pine, a second drive.
Because it's PUD, I'll make the motion to accept for the first reading as long as the entrance is on Pine Avenue and not Forest Road.
Or a second entrance, right?
Are you saying,
Second
once
entrance.
are you?
Yeah, that's what he
No,
meant.
wait, your motion is,
You want to,
they had said that they would add one, keep the forest and add a pine. What is your motion again, so for clarity?
is that because it's PUD, which makes it stricter, and that there's another entrance on Pine Avenue.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, now we can have discussion. I'll start with you, Linda, if you'd like.
Well, the only thing I wanted to point out was I appreciated all the figures that he gave about the trips, but there are 9.6 for a single family trips per day and 6.6 for a townhome, but when you go from 30 single families to 54 townhomes, it still ups it a couple hundred. So the trips per day is still going to be a lot more with the 54 townhomes. That's the only point I wanted to make.
And it's trips per day, but you look at feet.
I'm really concerned about the traffic, so.
Sure, understood. Gabby?
I share the same concern about the traffic, especially because we just approved the final reading for Hayes Park Cottages tonight. And one of the ways that they will go out will be Pine to Forest Lakes. So that's an additional 52 houses.
Or to Tampa Road.
Or Tampa Road, but that's the benefit for them is they have another option. And so that's I have that concern because like Jerry said, we all hate the light at the post office.
Yes, we do.
This could potentially become the light at the post office for all these people on their way to work. So, and they won't have a way to
Right
get
at
out
the
of
post
it.
office is not timed right.
But,
That
so
can
I
be
do,
changed.
I share those concerns still, but I'm not against progress as everyone else is, but I do.
Right, neither am I.
Sure. Jerry?
Adia, don't scream at me. I understand that it's a higher density, but it's only 14 more roofs. I mean, don't make out like it's 100 more roofs.
No, it's
that we're
24
doing.
more
It's
roofs.
14 more roofs, and I understand that. I want to bring it out. From 30 to 54 is 14 more roofs.
24.
It's 24.
24 roofs. See, I went,
You went in a one-room schoolhouse.
With one roof.
I graduated from Largo, okay? You know what? It's 24 more roofs. That sounds worse than 14, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Oh, snap. That'll learn you.
I ain't saying another word.
It's actually less roofs, but.
Didn't you say Ward or Schreckengoss taught you
Actually, less roofs.
about what to say?
Oh, no, not Ward.
That's,
Anything else?
no, I mean, I'm not saying anything else.
All right.
No, no.
Janice?
No, I have nothing else to say. I listened, I listened, and I have nothing else to say.
And I definitely have concerns about drainage. I definitely have concerns about traffic, as we all do, as the residents do. But the other component of that is that I don't want to handcuff our city, our ability as a city to grow and be a better city because of problems that we or you or others didn't cause, as I discussed earlier, and I don't know the numbers. But the problems are probably 80% from people that are passing through or going elsewhere. And I don't want us to handcuff our ability to develop because of problems caused by others. I don't want to stop people from having kids just because there are groups of kids that cause problems. I don't want to handcuff our ability to do something because of problems that we honestly didn't have any control over. We try and through our voices with the county commissioners and with the transportation authorities to try and be the squeaky wheel for the residents of Oldsmar because we all are, although we may not live exactly where you live, we all drive I go to, Nine Eagles Golf Course to go play, or I go, up Racetrack Road in the evening to have dinner, and I sit in the same traffic. And, tonight, I didn't think I was going to make it here. I left and I couldn't even get home yet because of the traffic on Tampa Road. And very few of those people turned into my neighborhood or any of the other neighborhoods. They zipped right on through. So, but I just don't want to see us handcuff our ability to do something. That's kind of my input on the traffic part of it. One thing I'd like to ask our city attorney to do, and we used to do this, but if you could explain the difference between what we're doing tonight and what we sometimes normally do on a day-to-day course of business about the Snyder hearing. And because we had discussion about the planning board, and we've heard input from both residents and staff and applicants and engineers. If you could just kind of explain in a Reader's Digest version what the difference is of the Snyder hearing and what we as council are basing our decision on.
Right. The quasi-judicial proceeding that is going on right now basically requires you to listen to the testimony and evidence, the testimony all being under oath, take that testimony, take the reports that have been tendered into evidence, and make your decision based solely upon that testimony, the testimony of the experts, which you can rely upon, the testimony of the lay people, which you can't necessarily rely upon for expert aspects of the case. In other words, when someone testifies as a layperson as to transportation, you can't give that the same weight as you would give an expert that has already testified to that. The same with the drainage. You have to give the experts more weight when you consider their testimony versus a layperson. It's important to hear the lay people, the residents speak. That's part of the process. But you are to make your decision based solely upon that evidence that you're receiving tonight. It shouldn't be based upon a whim. It shouldn't be based upon something that doesn't have any basis as to what you heard tonight. You are to confine your decision based upon what you see in the documents that you got in front of you and the testimony that you've heard. So it's a little bit different than the situation where it's a purely legislative decision and you can take into consideration these wide-ranging issues and topics. You have to narrow your decision based upon what you've seen and heard tonight.
Thank you.
So,
any other discussion before we call the roll? No other discussion, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaverland?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Aye.
Councilmember McGee?
Yes.
Councilmember Norris?
No.
Mayor Beavis?
Aye.
First reading of ordinance 2013-17, rezoning Tuscany Woods North Parcel of Planned Unit Development Overlay Zoning located at the northwest corner of Forest Road and Pine Avenue North, amended with an additional entrance on Pine Avenue, is passed with 4 votes for and 1 against. Councilmember Norris dissenting.
okay, move to the next one. Didn't know if you wanted to take a break or not.
Is everybody good to move on? Because I think this next one has a lot of the same issues that we've heard. If you would like to take a 5-minute, we can. If you want to move on. Is that okay with everybody else? Does anybody?
I'd like to move forward.
I'd like to move forward.
I'd like to move forward.
I want to see a movie at 10. I got the kids waiting for me.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and continue on. The next item number 10, first reading and public hearing of ordinance 2013-15, rezoning vacant parcel located at the northwest corner of Forest Lakes Boulevard and Pine Avenue North from office OF to residential multifamily RM15 with a PUD overlay. This is, again, a quasi-judicial proceeding. Ordinance 2013-15, I'll read it by title only. An ordinance of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, rezoning certain real property described as Meta Olds, Lot 1, Parcel ID number 14 28 16 57489 0000010 from Office General OF to residential multifamily RM15 with PUD overlay and providing for the effective date. That was a reading of ordinance 2013-15 by title only.
Marie Daphne, Planning and Redevelopment Director. Now we're going to be looking at or considering the rezoning of the south property, and it's located at the intersection of Forest Lakes Boulevard and Pine Avenue North. It's approximately 3.32 acres. As the city attorney said, it has a land use of residential office general with a zoning designation of office. The residential office general permits residential units. Even though it's a residential office land use category, it permits up to 15 units per acre. However, the office category does not permit residential development, and that is why the applicant is requesting the rezoning from office to RM15 with the PUD overlay. See the aerial. You can see that to the north, it's surrounded by residential properties. To the northwest is the Woods of Forest Lakes, a residential plan development. Southwest of the property is commercial plan development. Northeast is the preserve at Cypress Lakes, a single-family residential subdivision, and southeast is the fountains at Cypress Lakes. And there's a photo of the property looking west from Pine Avenue North. The existing office category would permit financial institutions, including drive-through, real estate, insurance, medical offices, professional service offices, and permit conditional uses such as medical clinics, government uses, etc. So with the proposed rezoning to RM15 with a PUD overlay, that would permit a well-planned orderly development of residential townhome development. This is the slide of the existing and proposed zoning. You can see currently it's office, and the applicant is requesting that it go to RM15 residential multifamily with a PUD overlay. As you can see from the survey, there was another of easements, etc. So it's not an easy site to develop. The aerial there shows the proximity to the residential development east of Pine Avenue and north of the subject property. I don't know, well, we'll go through the trips again. The office use is expected to generate 86 PM peak hour trips. and the townhouse development is expected to generate 14. So it's significantly less than if an office use was put at this location. Daily trips, the office use is expected to generate 637 daily trips, and the townhome development use is expected to generate 152 daily trips. So it decreases the daily trips by 485. So that's very significant. I'm not going to go through this drainage slide. I think that we've discussed drainage enough tonight.
Come on.
The master development plan, and the applicant has really looked at the site and is trying to recognize the residential to the rear. You can see that there's an existing wall that will be developed along the residential units to the back of the property. He's also putting a 6-foot decorative wall along the perimeter, Forest Lakes Blvd and Pine Avenue. And you know, that's a slide of the renderings again. It's, you know, compatible with the property development to the north. So staff reviewed this against the conditions outlined in section 3.15.3 of the Land Development Code. And based on that review, staff is recommending approval of the rezoning from Office General District OF to residential multifamily with a planned unit development overlay zoning designation. And at the July 10th, 2013 meeting, the Planning Board's motion to recommend that the City Council authorize the City Attorney to prepare an ordinance rezoning the 3.32 acre site from Office General to residential multifamily with a planned unit development overlay failed, and the vote was 0-6. And I'd like to enter the staff report into the record and answer any questions you might have.
Jerry?
The office trips are how many?
86.
Yeah.
Peak.
Let me go back here. The PM is 86 PM peak hour trips, and the townhomes would generate 14. So it was a decrease of 72 PM peak hour trips. By, you know, developing the site with residential uses.
Right.
I was going to ask this question, but I'll go ahead and dovetail it on that. Can somebody tell me the net change between existing and proposed with the two pieces combined? When at some point with the 86 and the but with the two components, I think he's just when you don't have to do it right now, but whenever you come up that way, because I think I see your point, Jerry, and that was kind of I want to see the two pieces combined because 86 to 14, the net overall change. Just Mike.
And I just wanted to point out also the land use, the residential office general category does permit 15 units per acre. So it's 3.38. You could have 45 units, I don't know, 50 units maybe, if they maxed out the site. But they are only putting 26 units at this location. So it kind of would balance it out with the north parcel.
Was there any?
Could you say that again, Marie? I'm sorry.
This land use category, residential office general, permits 15 units per acre. So it's a 3.38 acre site. So that would be definitely 45, but 50, I don't know, something like that. Thank you. So 50. And so it kind of balances out the increase in the residential units for the north parcel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there any concern, I don't know if I ask you or ask them, was there any concern with the entrance, the way it lines up with the preserves?
So to the applicant, we can ask the applicant when they come up.
Well, I was just wondering if there's any concerns with the.
Oh, with them?
It might be more appropriate if the entrance was a perfect match with the street across Pine Avenue. In other words, that they lined up as 90-degree intersections.
Correct.
And not offset.
Right. Look, I'll ask the applicant, and I just want to know.
Really didn't have a concern yet with that.
I have a concern there. Okay, I'll wait for them.
Any other questions, Sherry? Janice? Linda?
No.
Debbie?
No, not for staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant?
It's a 72 increase and it's a 14.
I think I got my number, but
Okay, good, because I didn't get a chance to finish doing it.
the 72 minus and a 14 plus, so.
All right. Okay, how can I make this quick and painless? Short of it, smaller project, less density than is allowed by the land use, no wetlands in the site, all upland. Being passed out to you is another copy of the
This is a
color
site
site plan, the same one that you should have in your packets already, and was put up by Marie on the overhead earlier. Just for the record, I want to enter Avid's application and analysis into the record as part of our evidence. The project's proposed to have 26 units, significantly smaller, that's less than 10 units an acre. It's a separate issue from the north one from a zoning and regulatory perspective, but the reality for the developer is that the two go hand in hand. And that's why, in order to, basically the increase on the previous one you heard is to allow for the decrease in density on this one so that together they average out to still less than what's allowed by the code and comp plan. What we're talking about on this one is 152 total trips per day and 14 peak hour trips. Again, to put my confusing perspective on that, that's 0.78% of the trips on Forest Lakes, again, less than 1% of the traffic, and it's 0.28% of the existing trips at Nampa Road, so it is very small. 14 trips in an hour obviously is not much at all. Question, to jump rather than go through what I normally do. Question was brought up about the driveway location. We don't believe that that's going to be a concern. The primary reason why we got that there is if you look at it on the site plan, there's, I believe it's 3 guest parking spaces proposed. By having that offset allows us to have that additional visitor parking. That's the main reason why we've got that aligned the way we do. Being a gated entrance does obviously change the progression of traffic in and out of the site. We don't feel it's going to be a safety concern.
That can be that can be a concern in the mornings and the afternoons.
I have an idea.
Wait a minute.
Well, can we just let him finish and then we'll barrage him with questions.
I don't want to be too repetitive from everything you've heard tonight. Again, we don't have wetland issues. The site is located outside of a flood zone. Similar to the other one, though, we will be doing some fill in order to provide for the stormwater ponds and positive outfall on it, just as we talked about earlier.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
You need to finish his testimony.
Yeah.
Hold on. Can we just?
Well, he hasn't addressed my concern yet.
Well,
except he didn't have a concern. I got a concern. You don't have a concern. I have a concern.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please go
Can we
ahead.
just let him? I think you're almost done, and then then we can ask him his questions.
That's pretty much it. I mean, everything we talked about earlier applies to it. It's the same unit types, same product, same builder, same market demographics. They're going to market both sites together as one project. So it's basically everything we talked about before applies here, except that we don't have any wetlands that we're staying out of on this one because there are none, one way or the other. Otherwise, we feel it's consistent with the city's comp plan and code and agree with staff's findings as well.
Okay. Questions? Jerry?
I want to know why we can't line that up at 90 degrees.
We could do that. Again, our purpose for it was to provide for guest parking.
Am I the only one on council that has a concern with this?
No.
Do you have a concern?
I mean, I'd like to. I haven't completely thought it through, but it's definitely a concern. I mean, is it resolvable? Is it is it the end of the world? I don't think there's a huge amount of traffic on Pine that, it's overly bad, but it's in the perfect world, it's always nice to have intersections aligned with each other. Hello, Bayview and
I see
any post office. So
Yeah, really.
but it's different. This isn't Tampa Road, but I mean, we can make it a condition of the site plan, or
People coming out of the preserves.
I have a question.
We don't know who's going to turn where, or people coming out of this when they come. I mean, when they come there together, and nobody seems to know who to go.
I have a question.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Are you done, Jerry?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
Can you put an ingress and egress on Forest Lakes Boulevard?
I don't think that's,
I don't believe we have the ability to do
That
that.
would solve a lot of problems.
that would cause a lot of problems.
Why? Why would it cause problems
Why would
if
it
it was
cause problems?
Hold on,
maybe
hold on.
just one of those gates to leave?
Hold on.
It'd be just an extra gate, yeah.
Yeah, we would not want to do that.
Why?
It's a lot of additional pavement. It would negatively affect the drainage ability for us on the site to do that. And being the size of the project, it doesn't really necessitate two gates.
Let me
Boy,
also.
So we could provide a
Solve a lot
second
of
emergency
problems.
access, but not for.
You're solve a lot of problems for these people.
Can I-
Go ahead.
If you put an entrance on Forest Lakes Boulevard, you're gonna have people having the same problems coming out of his.
No, because they could go, then they have three different ways to
People
get
on
in and
Forest
out
Lakes
of there.
Boulevard are gonna run over them.
It could be an exit only.
Well,
I have to say, I have a,
Be an exit only.
But how do you get there? I mean,
I
there's
don't-
no
yeah.
way to get to the exit.
I don't even know if you physically could do it, but
I don't know why you couldn't do it.
In stone.
I mean, I don't know physically. I mean, you obviously could, but with this layout, my concern is Forest Lakes is a lot busier, than Pine, and that's a safety concern. You're asking people to pull out onto.
45 miles an hour.
And if I'm not mistaken, the subdivision across the street does not.
So this is 55 miles an hour.
Come out
Yeah.
here, it'll be too close.
Pull out
Pull
when
out
the
on
light is red
Tampa
at night.
Road, 55 miles an hour.
Hold on,
He does.
hold on.
Ooh,
Stop, please. Thank you.
Can I address that briefly, the turn coming out on the Forest Lakes?
please.
For us to do that, the county would require a certain throat depth, meaning a far enough entry before the road curves or any other access point,
What's straight?
which would put us too close to the current intersection, Pine and Forest Lakes. The county won't allow two intersections that close together.
Put it over here.
That's the only way.
Put it here.
That's what he just said.
Well, that's
Intersections that close.
the problem is
It's
we
not close
couldn't.
to Pine.
The county won't allow us to have a driveway that turns that sharply that close to the road itself.
That close to here.
Oh.
This is Forest Lakes.
Yeah, that's what he
They're worried about a stacking problem.
Oh, I know what he
And the
means
cars could
by
stack
that. I
out
know what he
into
means by
the Forest
that.
Lakes if they
We're
can't.
trying to turn right in
Yeah,
there.
if they can't get in in
no,
time.
I don't think
How do
that
you,
that's.
how do you know? Did you ask?
That's the county's policy. The county's very strict on their speed limit on a certain road and how far one driveway can be from
You
another.
already know the answer,
Yes,
is what you're
yeah,
telling me.
yeah.
For sure.
And just for the record, the preserve does not dump out onto Forest Lake. You don't want to, the DOT and the county want to facilitate people moving through. They're on these type of roads, they don't want people pulling out onto them and stopping the traffic and turning. And, all of a sudden people are slowing down because I live in that first building right there and I'm slowing down to turn in there. I'm jamming it, which the preserve also does not have an entrance onto Forest Lakes Boulevard for the
Okay, well,
very same
that's-
reason.
That's the answer to the question. Thank you.
It's a 45 mile an hour divided highway for all intents and purposes. And I think that limit is 440 feet between drives.
One of the questions that we were
God, you
talking
sound like
about.
DOT now.
If that's okay.
They're actually stricter than DOT, Pinellas County.
DOT.
If you line a driveway up the entrance, Bruce had mentioned too, couldn't you move the guest parking to the other side and still be able to accommodate the guest parking and have the driveways aligned?
That's what I was thinking.
It's a
They
long
could
way to
put
go
the-
for the-
The guest parking by the,
Yeah.
So when you
We can
pull in,
align
yes.
it. We can align it. I don't know that we can. I tried to get as many parking spaces in there as we could. We could get less parking spaces to the north, but that would force everybody to cross that entryway once they park to get to the units.
Keeps you from getting guests though.
So I tried to keep
Like that if
everything
you
on that
lived
side.
there.
Anything else, Gabby?
No questions. Thank you.
Linda?
No.
Anybody else? Questions?
mine was answered,
I mean,
I guess.
I have the same concern.
In all their wisdom.
I mean, I'm fine, this is the reverse of Bay Arbor. I think it's, because it's not a lot. I'm 250 units. How many is this total?
26.
26.
Oh,
You know,
26,
it's
yeah.
one entrance, and I don't think you want them coming out on a Forest Lakes Boulevard.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Bad.
It would be nice if they would align. It can be a condition that we can, impose on the issue if we would like. If it's that big of an issue to us, we can make it an issue.
Is it that big of a safety concern? Like if somebody's there and they're going to turn, they would wait for these people to turn anyway, wouldn't they?
Well, they're saying you don't really have visibility
Or
to where
turn
those
right
people
only?
are going. But if you're right across from them, you'll see their blinkers,
Oh,
which
I
way
see.
they're turning. It just makes it a little bit.
I think the line of sight triangles are sufficient that it's not a huge issue that they're not aligned, but that's up to us as a council. We can make this a condition upon that they have to align, and that's if they.
I have another question, if I can ask one.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible since we are in control of Pine, to take some of the impact fee and do a turn lane here? Because that would help as well, like to do a turn lane onto Forest Lake, build a turn lane so that it wouldn't back up as much right in front of the complex.
Think of that too. That's a great idea.
Because I'm thinking most people are most people turning left or right on
They're
Pine?
probably turning right if you live
Most
there.
people are turning right. So if we could do a
Which way
turn
do they
lane.
turn?
That's not part of a rezoning issue. If that's a project you want to take up in the future, then you can put it in the capital improvement program or the budget or something like that. It's not related to
Oh.
Yeah, we
rezoning.
can't make that.
Okay,
Okay. Well, it's just a question.
Yeah.
okay.
To go,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
to go back to aligning the drives, we can do that and reduce or eliminate the off-street parking. It's not a requirement. It was just a wish of planning that we tried to accommodate.
Yeah, you have to have
I mean,
that.
I don't think we want you to reduce or eliminate the parking.
No.
Everybody wants to have the option of their guests a place to
Right.
park. But
Sure.
it seems just based off visibility that you could potentially move it down and still have room for at least 2 spots. I'm not sure how many are there. It looks like a handicapped and 2.
Yeah.
There's either 2 or 3 in a handicap.
Okay.
And I'm fine. I mean, in my personal opinion, I think it can be realigned, and I think 3 spots can be, 3 is fairly insignificantly. It could be on that little spur road. It can be onto the north. I think there is a way to accommodate it if we in fact made it a condition of the approval.
The one last question I had, and I know it's getting late, I want to make it quick.
Plus the air comes off.
The effect on the 4 homeowners that are behind that, the buffer effect, I mean, are they all 2-story houses? It appears like they
It
are.
only affects 2 houses.
Well,
For here?
The ones behind them.
No, it affects
Oh, these
2.
over here.
the 2 houses on that cul-de-sac,
Well, I'm seeing 4.
Yeah,
the other 2 are by the pond.
right.
I see 2.
Okay.
It's hard to tell from this. They don't look like 2-story homes, but I don't know.
Okay.
They are.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
if they're single story, it makes a big difference when there's a 2-story townhouse in your backyard.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
just curious, and then the wall height would be 6
This is
feet.
6 foot. Well, there's an existing wall back there,
Okay, okay, that's straight.
and that may be 8 feet back there.
Okay.
that wall.
Those 4 houses, there's three 2-stories and 1 single.
Okay.
And the 1 2-story, they won't see anything really than what they're seeing right now, except they'll have a pond there. It's the 2 2-stories that,
Okay. That's, any other questions? I have no further questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Open it up to the public. Anyone like to address the council one last time?
I got to move in 5 minutes. 73 Lakewood Drive. Do they have a park in Oldsmar named after you yet?
no,
We have a road to the food plant.
They will after tonight. Mr. Trask, the land is owned by the city,
That's correct.
right? So we don't have to sell it, right? If we don't want to?
Who's the we?
Right here. Us.
It's the city.
It's the city.
The city
Right,
council
here's
makes the
my
decision.
question. I've been there 11 years, got here in 94, from Buffalo, New York, lived in Los Angeles. That's a postage stamp where they want to put some property. Why don't we just have the salt licks there, have some animals, a park, do something with that property, and nothing's ever to be built there, ever. No buildings, no nothing. That's really what probably most of us want there, is nothing.
I'm sure you do, yes.
The value of probably 4 to 7 houses will be affected by either noise, by view, where this is going to be going. I got nothing against building guys. I'm a realtor, been there 27 years. It's just that you had a great story earlier today, 2 hours ago. It's great. That's why I came here. I got here in '94, and I used to laugh at the old timers because I was on Coldwell Banker and Gulf to Bay, and it was a half a day's ride by car to come to Oldsmar to do anything. I used to laugh at them. They had to change their oil by the time they got up to Curlew Road and before they got back. So what I'm saying is, it's not funny, but
And now you live here.
now I live here. I love it. That land there, nothing should ever be built there. I use the corridor because I travel a lot, Linebaugh, coming in north and south on Linebaugh. And it's beautiful coming in here. The East Lake Corridor, if you guys drive East Lake Road a million times going into Palm Harbor and Tarpon, you know, we're not west of 19, we're east of 19. It's a nice corridor here. So what I'm saying is, the vote tonight, whatever you're gonna do, I think most of us here don't want anything there on that particular property. We just want it to be open. You travel it, you see dogs, the deer, people throwing frisbees, throwing football and baseball, and they got signs now, no trespassing. That's not right. So, you know, good luck to you tonight, everybody. I gotta go, but thank you for your time. Really give it some thought.
Can I just give you, and Jerry could probably give you a 10-minute story on it, but the version I know of why we bought that land is really so that we can do, which is what we've done with a lot of other property, is so that we can control what does go in there, because had we not bought that land, and Jerry can tell you the whole story, there probably was going to be a gas station there.
No, there was going to be a gas
I respect
station.
that.
Yes.
So we bought it to control it, not necessarily to preserve
Honestly,
it.
you've done a great job. I was just kind of hoping that something else could be put there. It's a great, when you're coming in from the north, coming in south, coming into Oldsmar from West Chase, or whatever road or west, it's a beautiful corridor to see because you've got the conservation on both sides in the pond, and you're going to have a wall there now with some townhomes. I just think.
But it was really more forward thinking about not wanting a gas station there.
Let's keep that
and that's
going.
previous council that
Let's
did
keep
that.
it going, so when he goes up and sees his maker, it's Beaverland Park. Thank you all.
Thanks. Enjoy the movie.
I like you.
I think it's a great
Hold on.
idea.
Okay.
My name
Can
is
you ask you a question real quick?
Were you sworn in earlier?
Yes, I was.
Okay, I didn't see you back there.
I was
Okay.
hiding in the back. Jeanette Matlock, 500 Cypress View Drive. I live in the house right at the entrance to the preserve, so this will affect me quite a lot. And I do want to thank you for taking the forethought to buy that land to keep a gas station from going in, because I worked for Channel 10 a number of years ago when there was a big story breaking in a neighborhood, I guess in St. Pete or somewhere, where there was a gas station that got into people's water. People got sick, their clothes were stained. So I thank you for that. I'm not opposed to development. I moved here for the same reasons you did, Jerry, and I love you to pieces.
And we're glad you're here.
And thank you. I even work in Oldsmar. People do have a right to move into a nice city, but overbuilding can change a nice city to a not-so-nice city. Also, well-planned cities include green spaces. That said, I'd just like to read it some points. Currently, that open space across the way does absorb rainwater. Not perfectly well, because if you walk by those woods, it's pretty sopping back there, and sometimes it overflows. Also, because I live across the street, the way the street is built and the sidewalks are up to allow the water to flow down, my backyard looks like a pond at this time of year. It dirties my fence. I've had my fence replaced. The HOA has to paint the wall periodically because the mud sticks to it from the water that stands. I've even seen an alligator back there, about this big, but still. And the kids wade in it, and I'm waiting for somebody to have an accident one of these days.
Alligator doesn't have to be big to be
No, it doesn't
scary.
have to be big to bite. So that could result in more flooding. I don't know, I'm sure they're going to raise the land on that corner because it is down rather than up. As far as the entrance is concerned, I'm not opposed to it being across, because that might work if crosswalks are installed, and if people will kindly please stop at the stop signs, because they don't. The other problem with Pine is that people speed. It's 25 miles an hour there, and when I walk my dogs, if I had a speed gun, I'm sure I could make the city a lot of money writing tickets. And it's even worse when the kids are going to school, so I guess that's considered a peak time. Demographic markets about mentioning of who these townhomes are aimed to. In a perfect world, you hope that's who buys them. The rental market is very hot right now because a lot of people cannot get loans to buy houses, so there's no guarantee that investors are not going to buy these townhomes and rent them out. No guarantee of who they're going to rent them to.
That could be in the docks.
And I don't think that they'll be the kind of people that Westminster has brought in. And yes, my house was almost broken into.
No, what I said.
Hold on, we don't want to get into a debate with the,
I'm trying to
understand.
explain something to her, what I meant. I said it could be in the docks that you could only rent.
Certain percentage, yeah, certain percentage.
that's not what we're, that's the.
She was
I understand.
saying, investors can.
And as far as infrastructure, whatever governing body is in charge of putting in lights, it would probably necessitate turn signals. I can't tell you how many times I've laid in my bed and heard screeching and waited for the inevitable bang of metallic. And there have been some fairly good accidents out there, including requiring bay flight helicopters. So just be aware, while they don't say there's going to be a lot of increase of traffic, it doesn't take much for someone to run a light.
It only takes 2 cars.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
Thank you.
One thing we can do, the council can consider this, and it's not, I mean, everybody's ears go up and tears start coming out of their eyes, but somewhere between this entrance and down to the Forest Park, Cypress Forest Park, whatever that.
Cypress.
I can never
yes.
remember the name of that.
Cypress Forest.
There can be speed bumps put in there, and that's not a bad idea.
That's an issue that we would have to take up as a city.
Take it up,
That's fine.
but just-
We can discuss that, yeah, certainly at another, certainly. Anybody else like to address council?
Munson 510 Pinewood, again, the drainage, we can all talk about that. But some of the concerns, and I even dealt with Bob Sear on this myself personally because I was on the board, is the wall. And we've got a buffer there, and we've always had an issue with cutting the grass. And so, and if nothing else, again, I'm not against the development and things, because actually this looks pretty nice. And if you guys are over by Home Depot, it looks very similar to a community that's back in there. And you say both of these are going to be gated, both? I mean, that right there tells you they're going to have to take care of their own streets. There's going to be high HOA. So, you know, it kind of fits with what we've got going on in the neighborhood. But why I'm even here today has nothing to do with these guys. And I can pull you up articles. These were man-made problems in phase 1 of my subdivision. And you're right, these guys can't do anything about it. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, of flooding, or of how we drain, there's going to be some impact. You can tell me engineering numbers all day long. Again, I'm the guy on that turns dirt for a living, okay? And, you know, these guys, I work with these guys and plans and understand that. Please just consider these things, that the traffic coming, I mean, you don't go through what we go through. We live there. The traffic, you guys can sit here and I chuckle because I spend time here. You obviously aren't on the north side of town, because I can tell you the traffic count and the things that we experience are nothing that anything's come up here today. And, you know, you have to hear us. But it's frustrating as my council that sits here has really not listened to anybody.
Yes,
and,
we are.
And you are to a degree, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, because there's a lot of things that still have to happen if this is approved. Because again, I'm here because my problem is man-made from a developer. And it's in the articles where they dug a trench in the woodland, in the wetlands, and I understand it's part of growth and the resources. But the resources were minuscule back then, and I'm sure we've got the resources today. But my problem is, and I'll show you the video, what do we do about the 3 feet of water that gets in our neighborhood from drainage? That is a man-made problem. And this study that they're saying, that is a natural problem. No, it ain't, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to tell you right now. Get a shovel and come with me with a sledgehammer, and we'll do a test, and I can show you how a little bit of alleviate. But I'm not an engineer, and you don't have to take my stats, but I can tell you I work with them all day long. You need to consider the drainage. Thank you.
Look, you and I agree about how to take care of part of that.
Yes, sir.
In fact of the matter is, I worked on it a little bit.
Right.
You may have worked on it even more, but I worked on it, and I told that guy from Swiftmud he didn't know what he was talking about.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Chris Cusler, 1006 Robinwood Drive in the Woods. I can add a little logic to what Tyson just said. These guys are professionals. They're going to design their storm system so that during a certain design storm, The runoff from their development is no greater than what it is right now. The key there is design storm. So whatever that is, 25-year storm, 10-year storm, it's going to be designed for that. But there's storms that are greater than that, and we already have a drainage issue in the woods. During Tropical Storm Debbie, I think the water was maybe 8 feet from my front door. So, I mean, I urge the city to look at the storms greater than the required design storms that SwiftMud's going to require, whatever the city ordinance requires. And I agree, if the greater design storm causes more flooding in the woods, that's not their problem. So that's where it becomes incumbent on the city now to look at the drainage in our neighborhood. Those are city streets. And so if something greater than the SwiftMud design storm is going to flood us out, something else has to be done there, and that's all. Just I urge you to look at that when you approve these plans.
The drainage has to be looked at.
Thank you.
And we agree.
Thank you. Next.
Now it's 513 Lakewood Drive. Just kind of want to revisit what these folks were talking about building back in the day, back in the 70s, when it was a large preserve area on where the Forest Lakes area is now. And and growth occurred at that time, and that's great. You're talking about expanding on a large area. What we're talking about here is, like Joe said, it's the size of a postage stamp. It's shoehorning something into a very small piece of grass, like the last piece of grass in the city. If there's any way for the city to retain that small little corner, just for the sake of community, for the value of the neighborhood, I understand that the reality of money is what it is.
I know
it's so
it's a NIMBY.
small. We're going to shoehorn this project in there, and it's going to look terrible. Who's going to want to buy it? Who's going to want to live, on a tiny little corner at $250,000?
That's up to them.
It just seems like it seems like we're forcing something that doesn't really fit there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next.
Ruth Lovett, 412 Lakewood Drive in the woods. I need some clarification. As I understood Mr. Trask's explanation of this Snyder hearing process, did I understand you to say that the council people have to use the documentation and the expert witness testimony and weigh that heavier and base the decision on that, as well as not weighing what the lay people or the residents or the people that voted you guys in, much, much less?
The easy answer to the question is yes. Much less weight should be given to lay testimony about issues that have to be brought to the board by this council by experts, such as the engineering information. They have to give that more weight than they have to give your testimony as a layperson unless you have those qualifications. So the simple answer to your question is yes.
Well, let me go a little further. The reason for that is lawsuits. Lawsuits.
Well, I'm here to tell you, these people don't live where we live. These professionals don't live where we live, okay? And we live this every day. I'm not going to go back over all the issues I raised before in the interest of time. But we voted you guys in. We'll remember this with the next elections, depending on how you come.
Please don't threaten us.
No, I'm not. That's going to be an informed decision on our parts. I mean, it makes me question why even come here and express our opinions when it weighs this much and everything the professionals are saying weighs this much. It's very disheartening.
And I will tell you that it's a very tough position to be on this side of where we are.
Yes, it is.
To do that. And what the city attorney is saying is a broad thing that, and this goes in any trial. It doesn't matter what the quasi-judicial or the judicial trial is, you have to put more weight with the experts than you do with the non-experts. But it does not by any mean that we are not listening.
Yes.
And I will be the one to tell you that right now. I'll tell you tomorrow, and I'll tell you the next day.
But your decisions are going to be based on what they say.
No, our decisions are based on everything that we hear.
Yes.
And yours and the professionals.
Okay.
And I can tell you, that's me. I can't speak for the council.
Right,
yes, you
Ruth.
can.
And Ruth,
yes,
just
you
like
can.
the votes haven't been all unanimous, okay? We have to put weight on the expert stuff. So if an expert says this is
Okay.
the truth, that doesn't mean that that is the only thing that we consider in our decision. Okay, so I understand.
I completely understand.
I completely understand, and believe me, we love it when residents come and talk. And one thing I'd like to commend the mayor for is when that little beeper goes, we're giving everybody as much time as they want. We're not telling you you have to sit down. So I want to say
I
that.
appreciate that, and I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah,
Thank
and-
you.
It is, and I understand the question too, because it sounded like, it doesn't matter if you guys come. That's not true at all. What you guys have to say to us matters a lot.
And I'll tell you, and I'll just take that just one step further. And I don't expect to be able to ask you questions that I ask them and get an answer. But I expect to ask them that question, and I expect them to have an answer.
Absolutely.
You are giving us the living, breathing things that you see on a day-to-day basis, just like I do in my neighborhood, although I have some expert experience in drainage. But you live and breathe these things every day, and that's what we're listening to. We understand that. But then statistically, that's what they're for. We need to give them to give us the numbers. If it's 55 or 44, I don't expect you to know that. Nobody does.
Well, the combination is 80 more townhouses, 80 more residents or families, whatever. And it's hard to sit here and think that that isn't going to have an impact on everything.
Sure, it's understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
And, I'd like to say that we have to consider the whole city. It isn't just certain neighborhoods. We have to think about what's good for the city too. And it's tough sitting up here and making these kinds of decisions because people come all the time and it's what we call a NIMBY, not in my backyard, and everybody feels that way. We feel that way. We don't want things that we don't want either in our neighborhoods. But if it's good for the city and the experts tell us it's going to be okay, we have to listen to them. And as he said, we will make sure that the drainage is done correctly. Well, we're gonna, staff,
We're getting late. I want to keep this, I don't want to turn this into a Dunedin meeting.
Gardner, 413 Pinewood Drive.
Mayor, one more thing. On a Snyder hearing, if we don't listen to the experts, if we give the wrong decision up here, and it's happened in the past, we went through it with the big apartments.
Yes.
The city can be sued, and the thing can be changed over, and they can do what they want after the lawsuit if they win it. We can't take that chance. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No problem. John Gardner, 413 Pinewood Drive, the Woods of Forest Lakes. I do have a question, and that's, is one project south contingent upon the other one north?
Not on our vote.
But my question is maybe back to the buyers, developers. Are they going to develop one if they don't have the other?
I can't answer that.
I can't answer that.
So the city doesn't know that?
I don't know their performa. I don't know what it's based on. If you want my gut opinion, yes, they would not do it if one was not.
And then leading up to that is, what is the city getting out of selling the property at Forest Lakes and Pine? If it's our property, we're getting something for it.
Tax money.
$525,000.
Well, and that's the first time I've heard that. So we're getting $525,000, but I think that the ongoing problem, and we've heard it before, we've talked about it time and time again, is the drainage out of a good portion of our community, which is the Woods of Forest Lakes and the surrounding area. This could be the answer maybe to that problem, because you could create the wetlands for that drainage area or that drainage to go to, whether it's a pond and a recreation area surrounding that pond. Maybe that's something that's viable to the city to look at to fix the problem that's already there. And if you're saying, though, they're not going to accept north because we're not selling south, then that's going to affect the overall project. But you have an option available to you that says we're wanting to stay with the numbers that the ordinance already has, which was 5 instead of 10 for the north. And we're saying with the south property, use it to fix what we have, which is a city problem. It's city property. Use it to fix the problem that's man-made, that was done a number of years ago, but has to be fixed. And unfortunately, if they don't like that, they have to make that decision whether they buy one and not the other. So that's all I'm suggesting is a viable option to the city in making the decision whether they're going to approve it or not. In the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Last chance. Anybody else like to address the council on this particular item? Seeing nobody else, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I need a motion of some type for discussion. Do we want to make a motion? The motion was discussed about the alignment of the driveway.
I just want to point one thing out. A lot of the citizens mentioned making it a park, making it green space. I think everybody should be reminded that 1/3 of our city is green space. So we have a lot of green space already in the city of Oldsmar. I mean,
The most in the West Coast
Sure.
for the city
Yeah.
our size.
Can we do it in the reverse order and get the motion, and then we'll have the
oh
discussion?
yeah, sorry.
I need a motion of some type.
With the driveway.
I'm asking you, I can't make a motion.
Oh.
I can't make a motion.
No, I ask you.
I haven't made anything yet.
I'll make a motion with the driveway lined up with the preserves as long as it is PUD.
What?
I'll make the motion because this is PUD as long as the driveway is lined up with the preserves.
Okay.
Okay, there's a motion.
Motion to approve the ordinance with the condition that the driveway lines up with the preserve.
Correct. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second so we can discuss.
I have a motion and a second. Now we can have some discussion.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out, that, we are fortunate to have 1/3 of our city be green space.
Yes.
Okay?
Just comments I had. So when this originally came before me, I had asked Bruce about the south property. Did they have to have the south property? Because I felt the same way, that we were kind of throwing stuff into a shoehorn, and when you think about it, that is the most visible piece of property that they're going to have. So from a marketing perspective, it does, I'm assuming this, but I'm sure that's a very integral piece of the entire project. So I understand that from a developer's perspective, but personally, I did feel like, it was this shoehorn in the corner, and I had some concerns about that. At the same time, that is the only piece of property that the city actually currently owns. The north property is not currently owned by the city. So the $525,000 is for the south property only, so that's another piece of the puzzle. But yeah, still same concerns as the others, but I had more concerns about this one versus the other one, just because there are some homes that were affected. There wasn't a buffer, and, that I did feel like it was kind of shoehorned in a triangle there.
I just want to thank you all for coming, and I know that everything doesn't work out the way you wanted it. It's,
Well, this is only the first reading, too.
this is the first reading, but it's,
The public hearing's closed.
I've got to approve to change the driveway throat to line up with the
You
existing.
don't have to approve it.
Approve it.
Fine.
it's just the growth of the city, and we do it the best we can.
Do you have any comments or questions of your concerns about any of this? Okay. Vice Mayor Miller?
Yeah, got lots of concerns. I mean, I have the same concerns they do, but, like you say, like he says, it's the growth of the city, and we sure as heck don't want to get sued,
I have one, I want to say one more thing, too. I just want to say that I have less concerns about this piece because, first of all, I think that it is going to be a nice project, so it's going to look nice on the corner, and it's within the amount. It's less than the amount that's allowed. So
Yeah.
it's less than 10, and it could be 15. It could be a lot worse on that corner.
Yeah, I mean, I've weighed these two particular items completely independently, and if the decision on one affected the other and they weren't able to move forward, I don't really care, but you got to vote the way you vote, and they got to be independent. And to address the concerns of, I guess, from my perspective, and I feel really bad that there are drainage problems in one neighborhood or another neighborhood, but as a taxpayer, if I had problems in Bay Arbor, a private subdivision, a private community built by whoever built it, right, wrong, or indifferent, I would not want other people's tax dollars to fix my problem that's a personal problem that I have. If there are problems that are out there that are city properties or things that we can do out there, and I can tell you that we've done this in the south part of Oldsmar. We've done a study. We've looked at the city drainage system to see if there was anything that we can do to improve things on the city drainage part that by default, we didn't do really anything to other people's property, but we did things to our system that helped alleviate problems that we found in our system. Pipes were maybe too small, or ditches were maybe too small, that we've done some improvements, or actually in the process of doing that. But you got to look at it on a kind of a global thing. I agree with, I think, Linda and I guess Gabby to some extent, but you look at 86 trips versus 14 and what could go in there. An office complex, things like that. 500 and what was the dollar amount?
525,000.
And that's money that's going to go basically back, to the city, which goes back to the kind of the residents. And as I stated earlier on, the purchase of this was really, again, forward thinking to today, was to because of the concerns of the neighbors around there, so that basically a gas station didn't go in there. And
there was one going to go in there.
And that was through the decision that the council made, but that was also based on input from the citizens. So to say that we don't listen, that was the input of the citizens that were concerned about a gas station going in there, and I wasn't on that council, that we purchased the property. And we do that, you may not know that, but we do that throughout the city, so that we do have control out of what goes in there, whether it's Goodrich that we bought or property down by the library, the property where the reverse osmosis plant is. We bought that forward thinking so that we could control what goes in there, whether it's us that puts it in there or it's another developer that puts it in there. Case in point, the Hayes Park Cottages, that's our property, but we had the control of what goes in there. So I commend the council before. I agree with the driveway realignment. We don't really need your consent. We kind of got a verbal that you could do it. I think we're making it a condition. If it works, fine. If it doesn't, then so be it. But that's my 4 cents, maybe 5.
And I think you explained it very well.
The city is concerned about the drainage up there. I can tell you that the city manager and I put together a program back in the early 90s. Because of the drainage, and basically, one of the problems we have is that Oldsmar has 7,000 acres that sheet flows right into our city. 7,000 acres up there, and we have to take it. But wait a minute, just hang on there. You're not always right, as short as I'm not always right. Okay, wait a minute. Well, the city spent $1.5 million on a Burbank project so we could alleviate some of the drainage in that part of the city because they had major problems up there.
Yes.
We spent $1.5 million way back yonder that would cost probably $4 or $5 million today to drain all that area up there, a lot of it. We didn't alleviate all of it, but we did a big part of it during the Burbank project that drains into Mobley Bay. So we are aware of that. We have done things in the past. We can't alleviate it all. We will never fix it. Now, again, a lot of it is human-made, and I agree with that.
Any other discussion? No discussion, no more discussion. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Beverland?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Aye.
Councilmember McKee?
No.
Councilmember Norris?
Yes.
Mayor Beavis?
Aye.
First reading of ordinance 2013-15, rezoning vacant parcel located at the northwest corner of Forest Lakes Blvd and Pine Avenue North from office to residential multifamily with PUD overlay amended for the driveway to line up with the entrance to the preserve at Cypress Lakes subdivision, passes with 4 votes for and 1 against. Councilmember McGee dissenting.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 11. First reading and public hearing of ordinance 2013-18, annexing 3132 Huron Avenue. Ordinance 2013-18, an ordinance declaring the intention of the city of Oldsmar, Florida, to annex a parcel of real property located in section 22, township 28 south, range 16 east, further described as 3132 Huron Avenue, into the corporate limits of the city of Oldsmar, providing for the effect of this ordinance. That was the first reading of ordinance 2013-18 by title only.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Does anybody from the public wish to address this particular item? Harry? Throw us a bone, something? I don't know. Seeing nobody, I'll close the public hearing. I need a motion to approve. Need a second?
Second.
Motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes
No.
five.
We need a roll call vote.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Roll call,
I was
yeah.
trying to hurry it along. Roll call.
Yes.
Councilmember Blind.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Aye.
Councilmember McKee.
Yes.
Councilmember Norris.
Yes.
Mayor Beavis.
Aye, sorry.
First reading of ordinance 2013-18, annexing 3132 Huron Avenue, passes with 5 votes for and 0 against.
Do you remember how many people said, what do you want that for? You know?
Yep.
I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, you know, it's for the betterment of the whole city.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I have, thank you.
Sorry.
I'll hand it off. Is that enough?
Yeah, well, that was enough. That makes up for the days you got nothing.
Okay.
Thoughts here.
City manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The next item is to award bid for clarifier rehabilitation at the Water Reclamation Facility. 2 bids were received last month. Tonight, we're recommending that the bid be awarded to the low bidder, TLC Diversified Incorporated, in the amount of $475,850. This includes rehabilitation of both clarifiers, the north and the south. I would like to point out that this is funded in 2 budget years. The first north clarifier, $267,850, is in the current year budget, which ends September 30th. And then the south clarifier, $208,000, is in the upcoming fiscal year budget. But tonight, I am recommending that you award the bid to TLC Diversified Incorporated.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Need a second. Need a motion. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, item 13, approve Pinellas Public Library Cooperative interlocal agreement. The current agreement has been in place for, I believe, 10 years. It expires September 30th. The proposed replacement agreement has a term of 5 years. The major changes in the proposed agreement are that the East Lake Library becomes a full member of the cooperative. Currently, they are considered a unit of the Palm Harbor Library. Also, the governing board changes, that's outlined in the packet. It will still be 9 members, but the new board, as proposed in this agreement, will be 2 county commissioner appointees, 3 county administrator staff, and 4 city manager designees. Other changes are related to administration and capital funding. That's been revised also. And one other point that I would like to mention, because I think it's been discussed here before, is the millage to be imposed on the unincorporated area. The county commission already has established the tentative millage, and they've moved it back to half a mill for the upcoming year. If you have any questions or comments, I'd be happy to respond to those. Our library director, Mrs. Weber, is here this evening as well. I recommend approval of the interlocal agreement for the Pinellas Public Library Cooperative.
Okay.
Need a motion?
Yeah.
I need a second. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No. Poor Bert.
Poor Bert.
She should have been on the top of the agenda.
2.5 hours.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hello?
Are you in favor of?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Anything else?
That's all. Thank you.
City clerk.
Oh, nothing except congratulations, Kathy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Next is the city council authorize the city attorney to prepare a resolution establishing a charter review committee. I believe this was Vice Mayor Miller's
Yes.
kind of nudging that we needed to do this.
Yes.
You are correct. I need a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Second, motion is second. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Now, will we be able to pick people at the next meeting after he comes back with the res?
How does that work, Bruce? Or
Well, I would assume that you're going to consider and probably adopt the resolution.
Yes.
The members aren't going to be named in that, though, are they, Tom? You
Not
can-
normally.
No, not.
You can appoint them
Yeah, afterwards.
later.
Yes, okay, so to be at the next meeting or whenever he brings the resolution back and we vote on it.
Yeah, and the way that that's happened in the past, I think, is that each council member brings a recommended member so that you all have some say in it. I think that's how we did it years ago, 5 years ago or 10 years ago.
Okay. So I assume that means there's only,
what do
there's
we
5
do?
people on it?
But that won't happen at
It's
the
5
next
people
meeting.
in
It will
it.
be
No, that
after
won't
we've
happen.
adopted the
Right.
resolution.
I've already spoken to 4 people.
Well, then that's not fair.
Yeah, we get to pick one.
Okay. We've been here long enough.
I know.
You kids want to keep talking?
Nope,
Sorry.
It could be more than 5 members if you wanted to do that.
That would be something we need to decide now to write into the resolution or no?
If you wanted to give me that direction, yes, I think it's been 5 in the past, though.
I'm fine with
More
5.
hands in the
Been 5.
pot. I think that we have enough with 5 on our own
Yeah,
council
that's
to
fine.
imagine adding 5 more.
I'm fine with 5. Thank you. Next item, council comments. Oh, nobody has any? Good.
I got
No.
nothing.
I'll be fast. I'll be
I
fast.
do.
I'm kidding. We'll start with
With
Councilmember
me,
Gold.
nothing. I got nothing.
All right, I'll be fast.
Oh, except I want to say thank you to all the citizens that did come tonight, because it is what democracy is about, and we do listen to you. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Councilmember
I'll
Gold.
mirror that. I thought they were very kind. I was,
Yes.
I'm the newest council member, and I think that that went over very well versus what it could have been. So I, appreciate how kind they were, and they made good points. Shout out to the Oldsmar Fire Department, because I saw a video on YouTube of a rooftop rescue. And I don't know if everyone's seen it because it's a private YouTube video, but I happened to see it on Facebook.
It was great.
Where a gentleman had a seizure on a roof, and the Oldsmar Fire Department brought the truck out there and were able to
Good.
get him off the roof. And it was filmed because the roof was the company was a production company, so someone was filming it and put music on it and everything.
Oh, cool.
So it was actually just a neat little thing. Anne Stefan's birthday will be before the next council meeting on the 17th, so wanted to wish her a happy early birthday.
She's going to be 24.
And her birthday's right after my father, so you guys are right aligned there. And last thing, real quick, Frankie's Patriot Barbecue. So Craig Gross, they're having their grand opening also on the 17th.
You're taking mine.
From 12 to 3. And the address, in case any residents want to attend, is 2364 Keystone Road. And I did see on the invite that Congressman Bill Ruckus is also going to be there. So that should be great. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beaverland.
I echo them. It was a great evening with the people out there, and I appreciate their comments and coming, and they were great because, why they were great? Because they're Oldsmar citizens.
That's right.
That's why they were great. And just thank you all for who you are.
And you reserve the right to comment again.
And how do we extend the air conditioning?
Yeah, that was going to be
Wrote
mine.
that down.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Yes, congratulations, Kathy. It was well-deserved and, over time. And Craig is on the cover of the Oldsmar Life, and you already said everything about that. But I gotta tell you something. If you've never been to the Tampa Bay Skating Academy, you guys need to go. Saturday night, Jerry Antosi and her husband and I went because the Orange Blossom Open was being competed. And, well, it was competed. It was a competition. And there were people from all over the country coming here. And we have 2 kids. He's no more than maybe 13. She's 11. They're brother and sister. I wish you could see these kids skate.
Oldsmar residents?
Well, I don't know if they're Oldsmar residents, but they train
Yeah,
here.
train here.
They represent the Oldsmar Academy, Skating Academy. And these 2 kids were so fantastic. They're only this big, And I mean, they were doing, they did a perfect round. And I mean, they were doing axles and splits, and he would pick her up and throw her, and she would, I mean, I could not believe it.
You have never been there before?
No.
Why not?
That's right. Why doesn't everybody go?
You know that
Everybody go.
sometimes the Olympic
participants? Yes. Yeah, that's what they're doing.
Train there?
They're training
Sorry,
for
Mr.
it.
Beaverland, you gave up the floor.
It's my turn. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I just could not believe it. I mean, I was just mesmerized by, especially that couple, that young couple. And they are, what do you call it? International mediaries and what? Intermediate. International intermediate, though. International. So after the thing, I went up to him and I said, you know what? I said, you guys are so fantastic. I said, I hope to see you in the Olympics. And they were so thrilled, you know. But, I'm going again.
And then they got your autograph.
I'm going, no. And I'm going again. And I think everybody in Oldsmar should go.
You should invite him to come to council.
I
Anything else?
should have, huh?
Anything else?
No. Happy birthday, Ann.
Happy birthday, Ann. Congratulations to Kathy. Much deserved, probably way overdue.
That's what I said.
I want to echo that, and I know I do thank Tom for explaining the Snyder hearing. I wanted it to kind of be understood, and I didn't mean it to come across to the residents that their opinion doesn't matter, but I wanted to explain that the Snyder hearing is in fact different from a regular hearing for some of the reasons that Jerry mentioned. And on the other side of that, I commend them for coming out. They made some very valid points. Those points we took and redirected them to staff and to the engineers and the applicants to answer them. So, I mean, from that perspective, we do listen to what they say. It was drainage and traffic. And so we did listen to what they had to say. And to say things don't matter, and I worked for a civil engineering firm that did a lot of work with the DOT and a lot of work with the Expressway Authority. And when the Veterans Expressway came in, I at the time lived in Town and Country, and they were not going to provide an on-ramp, toll-free on-ramp to the veterans for the people on Memorial High that come basically down Memorial and now go Independence and get basically bypass the end of the veterans. Their original plan was to actually have a toll right there at kind of right there on Independence before we got on. And I asked my engineering boss at the time, I said, I got to be a resident. I said, I got to go out and speak my mind, and it may not happen and it may happen. And it turned out I was on the news. But had I not spoken out, and I don't mean individually, but the point was, you're not going to hold us hostage and force us to pay a toll when we have absolutely no alternative way out of there. You're forcing us to pay you a toll. And I said, and don't do it like a pacifier. And I did the old pop thing, and that was all over the news. And it worked. They did not put it in. They agreed that was wrong and that they were holding us hostage and forcing us to pay a toll when we don't have to pay a toll now. So people's voices do matter. I really didn't need any expertise, really, to say what I was saying. It was a point. It was
Yes.
The point was it's expertise, and so we do listen to them. And I will say, as I think Jerry indicated, that the city will do what they can. If there are problems out there, we can't fix personal problems, but we can do things that might help their problems, and we certainly will probably try and do that. We got a great city staff, so I thought it went well. I appreciate everybody's cooperation on the council and all the staff. I have nothing else. Anybody else? Jerry, you done? I need a motion to approve the tentative agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.